Hi there. We are so glad you joined us today for this message. We hope you enjoy it. Kick back, learn about Jesus, and be blessed. Talk to you soon.
Well, I got to tell you a story real quick. There was an old preacher that was dying, and he was on his deathbed. He sent a message to his banker and to his lawyer, which were part of his congregation, and he asked them to come to his home. And when they arrived, they were ushered into his bedroom, and when they entered the room, the preacher held out his hand and motioned for them to come sit down next to him. And so the lawyer and the banker sat down next to him on chairs, and the banker just took a breath, and he leaned up and was just staring at the ceiling. And so both of them were thinking to each other, different things, of course, but they were thinking to each other, man, what an honor it is to be here with him at this time. And then the lawyer went and thought to himself, hey, maybe, I don't ever remember him even giving an inkling that he liked me, in church or whatnot. So they're thinking all these thoughts, hey, I never saw any emotion towards me, but now he calls me here, and I'm wondering. So this is brewing inside of him, as it does, He's just silent, staring at the ceiling. Finally, the most curious one, the banker says, hey, why did you call us here? And so he, with his weakness, he gathered up enough strength to be able to say, Jesus died between two sinners. I just wanted to go out the same way. All right. Sometimes we can make fun of stuff, right? So, don't be part of the mob. How many of you guys hear the saying mob rule? You see different things that are going on in the world today out there, and there's mobs that are doing crazy things. Well, we're going to get into that today as we finish, I promise, chapter 21 of Acts. We're going to start at verse 27, but I'm going to back up just a little bit. Now, as we were in last week, the end of last week, there, Paul is taking this purification rite. The elders wanted him to go ahead and take this purification rite with these four men and pay for them. Go get all your heads shaved and go through this purification rites. And Paul was the one who was very boisterous about not being under the law, but then he was very also flexible. So I just want you guys to really think about that. And in being flexible, there's a fine line with things that we cannot flex on. There's things that we just cannot go there. But there's things that we can be flexible on. There's a thing going on. We talked on Thursday night. Christian nationalists is where we're being branded now if we believe that our rights our rights are inalienable to God and not man. Our inalienable rights come from God and not man. If you say certain things and you believe certain things, you are branded as this type of person. But what we need to understand is that when the founding fathers decided this is how we're going to do this thing, and why did they come here? Just for me. Why did they come here? Does everybody know why they came? Religious prosecution and taxes. No taxes. All that's ruined now, isn't it? But anyways, they say that we are the ones that keep them bound up. We allow them to not be free because we say we do things this way, we do things that way, and they're saying, well, you're not allowing us to be free because we're free to do whatever we want. Now, the Lord said to the Israelites that when the foreigners come among you, they will be under the same law as you are. So they will worship the same God. They will go to the same sacrifices, same festivals, everything the same. Otherwise, you have chaos. When this country was founded, it was found on Christianity. Now, there's different sects of Christianity, right? And that was the freedom part. So you could, but they all worshiped one God, right? The same God. The Christians did it one way, and the Catholics did it one way. There was no other religion. There was nothing other than Christianity, but different ways of doing it. So it was easy to have freedom, because you're free to worship God and do the things you want to do. You guys want to dress this way and do it this way? You guys want to dress this? That was the idea, right? But now you have so many other religions that have been allowed into this place that has caused chaos in the world we live in. Kind of the same thing that was going on in Jerusalem. They had Christians that had come in to believe that Jesus Christ was the Messiah, but then they were still following the Jewish law. So you had these crazy ideas. So I say all that to say that it's okay to be flexible on some things, but you have to know where you cannot be flexible, period. Right? It's okay to be called names and all the names that they want to call it, because you know what that is? That's sin. Calling out against Jesus Christ. What has He told us? The world will hate you because of me. So expect it, right? Expect it. We don't have to look for it, but we can expect that it's going to be there. All right, so he's going through this purification rite with these guys, and himself, he's going into the temple. They had to be in the temple for 7 days, praying, worshiping the Lord. And then after that, they could come out. And then verse 27, where we pick up, it says, Then when the seventh day was nearly over, some Jews from the province of Asia saw Paul at the temple, and they stirred up the whole crowd and seized him. I'm just going to open up there with prayer. Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the life that you give us. We thank you for the rain. We thank you that no one was, as far as we know, harmed from any of the storms. They were gentle, windy, but very wet, and that's what this ground needs. And we thank you for that, Lord, and we thank you for your word. Just feed it to us the way we need it. In Jesus' name today, amen. Okay, so right away you see some Jews from the province of Asia. They saw Paul. These guys, Paul knew who they were, and they knew who Paul was. He stood out to them because they chased him off before, right? They tried to get their hands on him before. He was doing that same thing. They started the rumors about Paul and his teaching. And it says there in 28, it says, shouting, "Fellow Israelites, help us. This is the man who teaches everyone everywhere against our people and our law in this place," meaning the temple. "And besides, he has brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place." They had previously seen Theophilus. It's one of them guys, and he was the Ephesian, and so he was Greek, and they saw Paul with him, and they assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple. What's the first problem there? Assume. What does that do? Yeah. Assuming, right? Well, we do that. We just assume, oh, well, that's what had to happen, right? That's what had to happen. And now these guys are stirring this thing up. But these guys see Paul. They come from the province of Asia, and they see Paul, and they're like, nobody's killed him yet? Well, we need to get rid of this guy, for sure. So then they start this riot. They start this crowd. And then they're yelling, fellow Israelites. So they're saying fellow Israelites as though it is your duty to worship God, and part of your duty of being a fellow Israelite is to kill this guy, get rid of him. That's part of what your job is. Don't you hate when people try to define what your job is? I am so guilty of it. My wife's job changes all the time because I changed her job description. It never gets lighter. But people will tell you, which I'm guilty of, what you're thinking before you even think it. So you're telling me what I think? Yeah, I am. That's not what you think? I'm wrong? We make all kinds of accusations. We jump to conclusions and we get things stirred up. And that's what they've done. They stirred this up. And they're first of all, they're lying. They're saying that he everywhere he teaches everyone against our people and against our law. Some parts of that are true. In this place being the temple. And besides, this is the big law. He brought a Greek in. They had left him for dead, and this guy's not dead yet. We need to kill him again. So in Romans chapter 3, verse 31, don't be a part of the mob. Did I leave that one off? Okay. Well, I thought that was at the top. Romans chapter 3, verse 31. I apologize to you. It's the very last verse of that chapter. All right, who turned there first? It says, well then, if we emphasize faith, does this mean that we cannot, that we have forgotten about the law? Of course not. In fact, only then we have faith. Well, only when we have faith do we truly fulfill the law. Does everybody understand what that means? Now, Paul's saying this from experience. But only when you have faith do you truly fulfill the law. Because what is the law? What is the law of Christ which we live under? Yeah. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And to love your neighbor as you love yourself. This fulfills all the law and the prophets. Right? So that's simple. He's saying until we have faith in Christ, we don't even know what life is to understand even what love is. Because we'll love things and we'll love people, but we love in the way, without Christ, we love in the way of worship. Okay? With Christ, we have focus on who we're worshiping, so then we're able to love things and people in a different way than if we were without Christ. We love things, but in the way of worshiping them. Does that make any sense to anybody? Or is it just me? In Acts chapter 20, 24, and I didn't give you this one, but if you just go back to 20:24, it says, however, I consider my life worth nothing to me, only to finish the race and complete the task the Lord has given me. When he's saying that, he's saying that with conviction. And they're saying, here he is again. We need to get rid of him. And they're accusing him of saying the same things. And this is what's really cool about this. It's cool, but it's curious how God works. In Acts chapter 6, verse 13, which I know I gave you that one. No, I didn't give you that one either. The lying witness said, this man is always speaking against the holy temple and against the law of Moses. Who is that they're talking about? Stephen. They're talking about Stephen. Paul's there holding the coats, saying that they're accusing Stephen of the same thing now they're accusing Paul of. And everyone's just assuming that he's taken this guy in. The very first picture there, you want to put that up? This is one of the signs. It's written over, but it's a tablet. One of the signs that was posted that's been recovered. At the top of this, it says, Christ broke down the barrier. Now, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14 says that Christ took the separating wall down, right? There's no difference between Jew and Gentile. He took the separating wall down. He tore the veil, right? And there, the scripture with Paul saying that he took that guy in to follow him. But the sign said, foreigners must not enter inside the railing into the courtyard around the sanctuary. Whoever is caught will have himself to blame for ensuing his death. Now, in that sign there was posted in several spots that if you were a Gentile and you went in to the temple, you were going to die. And the Jews, the Romans, have given the Jews permission to kill even a Roman, which would be considered a Gentile, that crossed that barrier and did that thing. So all of this is being done in the Roman mindset of law and order. We must keep the peace. We must have law and order. So I just thought I'd point that out to you guys so you could see that. And in verse 30 it says, and then this whole city was aroused, and the people came running from all directions, seizing Paul, dragging him from the temple, and immediately the gates were shut. So they're taking him out of the temple. You are blasphemous. You've broke this law by bringing a Gentile in. Where's the Gentile? Nobody knows where the Gentile is because the Gentile didn't come in there. He didn't bring a Gentile in there. He went in there himself with the 4 guys to purify, right? See, you go back, this is what man was telling him to do. The elders of the church were telling him, you go do this purification thing. So he's doing that. He's in the temple. There's no Gentile in the temple with him. Those guys are outside that traveled with him. They're not being persecuted or chased after or anything else. Just Paul. And the only reason these guys even see him is because he's doing this in the temple, and they enter the temple and see him there. So they drag him out, much like they drug Stephen out to kill him. And it says, while they were trying to kill him, the news reached the commander of the Roman troops, and the whole city of Jerusalem was in an uproar. And he at once took some of the officers and soldiers and ran down towards the crowd. And when the rioters saw the commander and his soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. So, who saved Paul out of there? The authority did. The authority in that place. They already knew, man, don't mess with these guys, right? Because the crucifixion was a real deal then. It was fairly new, but it was real deal, and that's how you got punished. You got punished in horrible ways in Rome. These guys, the Ephesian, they're there they have zeal for the temple. See, these guys who have come to this place from the province of Asia, they have a zeal for this temple, as the Ephesians did. If we go to Acts 19:29, Acts 19:29. And do you guys remember this story? Great is Artemis. The whole city rose up in an uproar and seized him and his traveling companions. They rushed together and they started saying, "Great is Artemis," and saying that Paul was defiling the temple and defiling their business and coming up with lies about him. These guys, these Jewish guys, have the same type of zeal for the temple, which is basically at this time now useless, has no place. Huh? Yeah, they were doing the same thing that they were doing for Diana. The temple was now, both temples were needless and worthless to God. Not necessary. By dragging him out of the temple. Now see, and here the other thing is too, we need to understand, it was about 20 years ago that Paul was a figure in the temple. I mean, he was a big time figure there. He was well known in that area. And now, of course, he'd been beaten a few times and he'd been hurt, and he's 20 years older. Nobody really recognizes who he is. They've forgotten about who he was. And so they're just tearing into him. Now, we already know that if the Romans find out that he's a Roman, they're like, hey, nobody touches a Roman unless he goes in there. But he's a Jew too, so man, he's got the... We can't kill him because he went in there because he's a Jew, but he's Roman too. So, what do we do with this guy? They don't know that yet, right? In Acts 21:13, 21:13, going back, we see what they told him to do, right? Here, let's see. And Paul answered, "Why are you weeping and breaking my heart? I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die in Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus Christ." He's knows this is coming, and he's very calm about it. None of us would be calm, right? None of us would be calm at this time. So they stop beating him. They see that they're coming. They have an authority, and so you guys know the commander of the Roman army at this time was responsible for any riots, any peacekeeper. Any riots that broke out, they're supposed to stop it, right? But also responsible for any property damage. If there was property that was damaged, someone else's property, it came out of his money to fix it. And he could also lose his job. That's a pretty significant idea right now. You know, we say we have people that govern over us and everything else, and riots going on in this country. But if we were to say the mayor of that town is the one that's supposed to stop the riots, and then if there's property damage, he's paying for the property damage. Wow, we should have never got away from that, right? Should have never got away from that. I mean, those guys got money, right? They get in politics now for money, right? But if we put more on them instead of taking things off of them, and it's hard because sometimes you can go, and in the same sense, you can go to a church and they'll take things off of you and you'll feel lighter and you'll feel so happy and feel good type of preaching. And then you come to a church like this and it's like every week something else is put on me. Oh. Amen. But actually, you're a better person for it. And it's actually taking it off, putting on God and taking off the world. It's not the same. Now you can't govern this country in the way that the founding fathers did because of all the mess and all the extra baggage that's come in here, that we've allowed to come in here, that we've welcomed. But the Lord said, when foreigners come to stay with you, they live under the same laws as you do, and that was honoring God first. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So the commander was responsible for keeping the peace. And they don't even have the same ideas going on in this crowd. We'll go to 33, and the commander came up and arrested him. And bound him with 2 chains. Michael's new rap name. 2 chains. Yeah, but he wears 3 chains. It doesn't make sense. But when it says 2 chains, being bound by 2 chains means 2 soldiers. 1 chain, 2 chains, being bound by 2 soldiers. So he's not going anywhere. And then it gets ugly. It gets really ugly. So much so that they have to carry him. Then they asked, who is he and what has he done? And some of the crowd shouted one thing and some another. And since the commander couldn't get the truth because of the uproar, he ordered that Paul be taken back to the barracks. So, how many of you have seen videos, some videos where people are going into these crowds and these colleges and everything and asking people, why are you protesting? And they go, I don't know. Do you hate Israel? Not really. Do you support this? I don't know. Then what are you doing? I don't know. Everybody else is. And that's exactly what's going on. Everybody else is doing it. So I think I'll throw mine in too. And of course, we know there's people getting paid to do that thing. There's people getting paid to rally it up. How do you this morning I got up early and I turned the TV on because the storm and all that was watching. So I had it on Channel 4, and boy, bless their heart. They had one of those, hey, if you sow this seed, one of the sowing seed guys, and he was funny. He just kept telling cracks after cracks after cracks during his whole deal, drawing the people in, and they're just laughing and sounds familiar, doesn't it? But they're just getting into what he's saying, and he's like, and I wrote this check. And he's telling, I wrote this check God told me to write this check for $111 for me to give to the Lord. And then I wrote that and said, okay, Lord. And then he told me, write another check for $111 to give from your family. It's like, Then he said, write another check for $111 to give for your business. And he's like, oh, man. But then he tells a story about how he gives him 1,000-fold with his business and his family and everything else at the end of the story. They all have the same story, right? And God is good. I'm not saying that. God is good. But he never said who he was writing the checks to. If you're going to write a check, you know where it's going. If you got a true story about God, you can tell where you wrote the check to, right? I wrote it to God, and I put it in the mailbox. No, come on, man. But you can getting these people laughing and getting them drawn in and getting this story going and telling probably a lie. Everybody's starting to get their checkbooks out and write. Because we can get people riled up, emotionally riled up about something, about a project or something, and get them to do something that they wouldn't normally do, right? It's what's going on in America right now. We don't got no reason to be doing this in colleges or in front of City Hall or anything like that. That's all stupid. It's a waste of time. Complete waste of time. There's black and there's white. There's no gray. There's no gray. So we can't live in the gray. People can live in the gray all they want, and they can live in the black all they want, but we can't. We can compromise a little bit to try to bring somebody out or give them word, but we can't live over there. Just can't do it. And we don't want to get into all that jumping out of our skin because of emotions, right? Worship is something that really gets people fired up, right? You can really get an emotional worship going on and everything, and you see the people get in a frenzy and they're just all worked up, and then you have a message, come forward, and people come forward. They'll give their life to the Lord every day. I mean, I give my life to the Lord every day, right? But they'll come up and do what you should do, that you don't have to get wired up about. You should do that anyway, right? You don't do it once and that's it. You do it every day. I mean, yeah, like Jody told us the other night, God, He is faithful to finish the work that He started in you. But if you run off the other way, if you chase Him out of the temple, you're stopping it. He's faithful to finish it, but you got your little part you need to do too. So if you do absolutely nothing, well, and let Him do all the work, well, that may get you around there, but you're probably going to be a little bit more bruised up, have a broke up nose like Paul, and not be able to see too good by the time you get there. Not because you wanted to, but because that's how God had to get you there, right? He's doing this because He wants to. So they stop beating him, and they realize these authorities here, some are saying one thing, some are saying another. They don't even have any idea what's going on. And he can't get the truth out of them, so let's put him in the barracks. In 35 it says, and when Paul reached the steps, the violence of the mob was so great that he had to be carried by the soldiers. The crowd that followed kept shouting, "Get rid of him! Get rid of him!" Now, you guys understand, they're not saying, "Keep him out of the temple." They're saying, "Get rid of him from this earth. Get him out of here, out of this world, kill him." And that's anytime people are out there and, yelling for someone else to be killed, that's terrible, isn't it? Is there anything but sin involved in that? Yeah. I mean, you don't, it's just either side, right? It's all sin. We don't scream for people to be killed. I mean, you can see a politician on the TV as you walk by and don't do it. But you can, but don't do it. Because that just makes you angry and it makes you sin against God. Because God created that person that's being really stupid right now, right? They still have the same opportunity we do. Some of them sign on to work for the devil till the end, but God still uses them too, amen? Oh, 3-chain Michael. Get rid of him. So where else have we seen that? In Luke chapter 23, verse 18. What? But he said, oh, that's not the right one. 23:18. You don't have to turn there. This is when they're... you guys can turn there. The crowd is erupted and they're saying to kill Jesus, do away with him, crucify him, and release to us Barabbas. The same idea. Take him from the earth, but they don't care if somebody else is released. Yeah. The mighty roar rose from the crowd, and the voices they shouted, "Kill him and release to us Barabbas." And then they said that our blood, his blood be on us. We'll take his blood. Dummy. If you just keep your mouth shut and let him, things all have to happen because God wanted. His blood was on their head, not poured over them. Now, could they ask for forgiveness? Right? Not if they're already gone, but I mean, we all can ask for forgiveness at any moment, any time, right? Is there anybody ready to do that today? Give it to the Lord. In verse 37 here, it says, as the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked, "May I say something to you?" And that amazes me. May I say something to you? If you look at some of the things that Jesus said, they were very simple. You know, it is as you say. Very calm, very collected. Paul's doing the same thing. May I say something to you? So right away, may I say something to you means, you know, this guy should be doing what we would do, right? Lots of cursing. You know, probably trying to wiggle away, punch as many people as he can, right? Struggling for it. He says, "May I say something to you?" As the guys are carrying him up the stairs, "May I say something to you?" So right away, just using those words there, he's like, "Hey, this guy's not a heathen. He must be something to him." So he says, "Do you speak Greek?" And he replied to him, "Do you speak Greek?" Now, at this time, Paul, he spoke a few languages, and but this guy's wondering who he is. He says, "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago?" So, without getting way off into that, but there was a gentleman who wanted to take the temple out. He led some people out into the wilderness, and he escaped when they went and crushed that revolt. The Romans did. He escaped. And so he's thinking, I don't know who this guy is. I thought this was this guy trying to cause troubles again. Snuck in amongst the Jews and was making a mess. But it's not. Right? So he answers him. He says, "I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." A citizen of no ordinary city. Basically what he's saying is, I am a citizen of a special city, or the city, a blessed city. Well, where's he at? He's in Jerusalem. So where was the core of the Romans at? Yeah, in the same area where he's from, right? I'm a Jew. I'm a citizen of no ordinary city. The city had multiple deals in it. That's why he was a Jew, but he was a Roman citizen, and he was schooled. And so at this time, he is asking, "May I speak to you?" He's got no fear, no anguish, no violence against them, no cursing, no back talk, as most of us would do all those things if somebody's trying to drag us off somewhere. He gives a spiritual response, a very spiritual response. Not talking about his flesh. He's already decided, whatever happens, happens. And there's so many people who have written about, he did the wrong thing. Could you think about if he would have listened to the Holy Spirit and not done those things, all of the footwork he would have been able to do, he could have saved tons of people by traveling around and doing what he did. But that wasn't what God wanted. They're saying that Paul was a rebellious spirit and he did these things out of rebellion. I'm going to do what I want to do. They're saying that he's here at this point now. His heart was for the Jews. So he's brought himself to this point now where he's like, finally I'm going to speak to my brothers. The ones whom I love, who I would go to hell for. Right? We saw that last week. We were studying that, looking at that. So finally, here I am. And they're like, no, he's totally going off from what God's program is. I don't believe so one bit. Right? He had that time to write those letters that we have today to guide us, right? He had time to prove who and what he was, being bound, being chained, being on house arrest or in prison, and still doing the work of God, still bringing people in to a right relationship with the Lord and growing the kingdom from that aspect. Most of us would give up, right? No, I can't do anything from here in prison. I can't do anything. But we have to grow with where we are. And through his response, God opened the door, I believe, for him to speak. Most of the time when we have a response, when you have lived your life in a path of damage and you've been wrong to a lot of people and you've done wrong to a lot of people, comes to a point where they don't want to hear you anymore. They don't want to hear you anymore. Now you come to Christ and you change your life and you change the way you act. You renew your mind. You start to do things differently. And you can now, a door, because of a spiritual response, a door can open in other people's lives that you need to go, wow, that door opened. Then pray that door doesn't close and you can continue to put seeds in that area. That's what happened to him because of his response. If he'd have done anything else, I really believe this, if he'd done anything else, everything would have been off. Everything wouldn't have gone the way God wanted it to be. And we all know that no man is going to stop God's plan, right? We can put it off a little bit, we can mess with it, but we can't stop it from happening. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 17 through 20. But beware, for you will be handed over to the courts, and you will be flogged and whipped in the synagogues, and you will stand trial before governors and kings, because you are my followers. But this will be your opportunity to tell the rulers and the others, unbelievers, about me. And when you are arrested, don't worry about how you respond or what you say. God will give you the right words at the right time. For it is not you who will be speaking. It will be the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. So, this is what Jesus said, and it's almost like Jesus is telling Paul's story. Right? It's almost like he's telling his story. So it's almost like that we should inspire that should be our story. How do you feel about that?
They thought it was something to rejoice over, to be able to be persecuted like Jesus.
Yeah. Where'd we lose that? Well, yeah, fear. But I mean also, too, laziness. I'm not going to do that. I would be much better if I could be here and then I could walk around and I could tell the message of the Lord even more. I think it'll be this way. Right? Well, not for everybody, right? There's a lot of countries where there's men preaching the gospel that are being persecuted, and these things are happening to them, and women too. Huh? Right now in Canada, yeah. Churches are being closed down. Pastors put in prison. No, not that far away. And do we foresee that happening here one day? Almost certainly. Yeah. I think we'll be driven back into homes and hiding. I always say that I'll do a bunch of heroic things, but I don't know that I ever will. I'm just a normal guy. So Paul answered him and says that he's a Jew and he's a citizen of no ordinary city. Please, can you speak to the people? And in verse 40 it says, after receiving the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and he motioned to the crowd. And when they were silent, he began to speak to them in Arabic. So Paul is amazing. He's very schooled, right? He speaks to them in Greek, Arabic, or Hebrew. Some people say that he knew some Latin. But here I'm telling you, he also was versed in Italian. Because he says he motioned with his hand for the people. So, yeah, there you go. Shut up your mouth, whatever it was. So he knew the languages, he knew what to speak, and then when he got the opportunity to speak, I believe what happened in this man's heart, this commander's heart, was that he thought that if he gives him an opportunity to speak, after he said, I can tell he's smart. He spoke to me in Greek. If that'll help settle this crowd even more, because his job was to settle the crowd, like we were saying. That was a big deal. So he was thinking, maybe if I give him an opportunity, he'll help me to settle the crowd. And then speaking in Arabic, you can see it got really quiet. They were like, wait a minute. Most of us thought that he was a Gentile, and that's why he was in there, and now we're going to kill him. Because they were saying this, and they were saying that. Nobody really knew. But when he spoke in their native tongue, it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Something else is going on here. And Luke said also to, and Paul, that I'd rather speak one word that you understand than many that you don't. Speaking in tongues that you wouldn't understand. I'd rather speak one that you did understand. So that was in his heart, we know. So what we see in the world today is that people will stand for values and beliefs. And they'll stand for values and beliefs because, yeah, this is a good thing. They shouldn't persecute these people. They shouldn't do this thing and they shouldn't do that. And they stand up and they riot against it, but that lie comes in. And they don't really know why they're doing something. They don't know they don't have the foundation that the founding fathers had when they started this country. They're not ultimately grounded back to God, right? They don't have the ideal that what you're hearing and what you're saying is wrapped up in sin, wrapped up in chaos. It's a little package here. So the lie enters in. And a person or the person in the crowd, once the lie enters in, they already made up their mind. You're not going to change it, right? It's happened to me. People have started saying stuff about me, and then somebody interjected something about me, and then I couldn't talk to anybody anymore because that lie got into a big thing. I never did that, and I never said that, but it got into a big thing. And a lot of people were like, can't, I already made up my mind about this dude. Well, I can't do it. It's happened to my wife. Be the leader of a church. Be the leader of anything at any time. People try to tear you down, take you down. If you did something right or if you did something wrong, don't matter. Just one day. Well, we know that we don't fight against people, right? We don't war against people. Yeah. And know also, too, that when somebody changes their heart, when their heart is hardened towards you, that's not because of you. Yeah. It's about something else. Something bigger than you. We can't focus on, oh, they don't like me anymore. You can't do that. They can't. That's wrong to do to yourself, and that's wrong to do to the Lord. That's His glory, right? We don't see that as glory. And so I named this "Don't Be Part of the Mob" because that's what you see. The mob's already made up their mind, and we today in this world, in social media, you can jump on to something about somebody with social media, and you just become part of the mob. You're just adding to the fire. You're just making that thing bigger, right? And it happens. It happens in all kinds of ways. If we jump up against a politician this way and we start doing this, we're just adding to that mob of people. We don't really know. The media can take something, and if somebody says, oh, what about this? No comment. Well, then the media goes, well, that's not a story. No comment's not a story. So I'm going to write it like this. And then everybody's like, yeah, that's the truth. Yes. When it's really not. It's just a story. A way to grab people's attention. A way to incite a riot. A way to wake up a mob. So social media or in person, we need proof of things. And a lot of time like this, the trial is just public ridicule. Just all these people jump on and start saying this, trashing that person about that. And what do we do with our kids when they have bullies? Right? They're saying, oh, don't bully, don't bully, don't bully. Don't be a bully. Don't be an online bully. They're trying to go through the schools and make programs to help the kids not have bullies. Don't be a bully. And they're taking kids and teaching them how you were a bully. Now you're not going to be a bully and do these things. And what's the emotional problem with you being a bully? And then they go to college and it's like, you all need to be bullies. Get in there. Get your tents and your little pee bottles. They're all going to grow up to be truck drivers, Art. But you see what I'm saying? We teach them, no, that's not good. Yes, now you got to do it, right? Debating. When you're in debate class, they don't tell you this is the right point. They say, okay, this half you're going to argue this point, and this half you're going to argue this point, right? It don't matter if what's right and what's wrong. You're going to learn how to argue. So you have kids that grow up that all they want to do is argue. How many people do you know about the Word of God and all they can do is argue? They don't know anything. They're always gaining knowledge but never knowing the truth. They want to argue it out, right? It's not what God's Word says we're supposed to do. Was that too much? So, all these things cause an uproar. And see, that's the thing about Paul. He would everywhere he went was either a riot or a revival, right? One or the other. There was never, a happy medium. Everybody was either up in arms about him or following him. Except Mars Hill. But then again, also too, in Mars Hill, you had some that totally dismissed him. Some that said, well, we'll hear of you again. And some that followed. You had three categories of people. That breaks down to three categories of people which are in this world today, right? But it wasn't as fruitful as his other ministries, that's for sure. Because he tried to come down and reason with the men. In Psalms chapter 109, verse 1 through 5. O God, whom I praise. Don't stand silent and aloof. Does everybody know what aloof means? Off in a distance, uninterested, not paying attention. While the wicked slander me and tell lies about me, they surround me with hateful words and fight against me for no reason. I love them, but they try to destroy me with accusations, even as I'm praying for them. They repay evil for good and hatred for my love. So he's saying there that he loves them. Does this seem like this was written about Paul too? Because these are the people that he loves, that he's around. But even while all this is going on, he says, I love them, but they're trying to destroy me with accusations. Now, what are we supposed to do as Christians? Somebody's got the answer. Yeah, we're supposed to love and impart grace. Speak life and impart grace. Both of those are love. Even to the ones who are murmuring in their tents about us and not agreeing with us. As we saw the brothers and sisters as they told him, don't go, don't go, don't go. And then they finally said, well, we'll help you carry your stuff. They finally come around to understand that when somebody doesn't do what you tell them that you think they should do, that it is possible that the Lord's telling them something to do. I don't mean you dismiss you out of my life now because you didn't listen to me. Unless it's your children, right? Yeah. So who should we rely on? The ruling authority or God? Yeah. God used the ruling authority to stop Paul from being beaten, to give him the opportunity to be standing before these people. And next week we'll see what he says to them. In 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14 through 18. Do not team up with those who are unbelievers. How can the righteous be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? How can what harmony can there be between Christ and the devil? How can a believer be part with an unbeliever? And what union can there be between God's temple and idols? We've been studying that. For we are the temple of the living God. As God said, I will live in them and I will walk among them. I will be their God and they will be my people. Therefore, come out from among the unbelievers and separate yourselves from them, says the Lord. Don't touch their filthy things. And I will welcome you. I will be your father and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Almighty Lord. So don't touch their filthy things. Come out. Be separate from them. How much sometimes we just look like the world. So don't be part of the mob. Can you put that last one up there? The Paul and Jesus alike. Is it up there? They got it in several slides there. But I'm not going to go through and read all that because we're running low on time, but I'm just going to let her spin through that. But a lot of times we see how Paul and Jesus' life intersected. We don't want to be part of the mob because the mob causes chaos and confusion. And who is the author of confusion? The devil. We want to be part of the body of Christ. Amen. Where there is forgiveness, rescue, redeem. We're free, we're secure, we're sealed, and we're loved. We are a people of order, not chaos. The Romans were a people of order. That's one thing about them. They kept the order of things, right? Now, this world has gotten so crazy. The devil loves chaos, and sometimes we do too, right? Sometimes we do. How many of you, when everything starts going good, you got to blow it up? We grow out of that. We grow out of that. We start to rest in the place of the Lord when our mind changes. God loves order. Chaos brings sin and riots. Order brings wisdom and peace. I wish there'd be a politician that would say, instead of saying law and order, say God and order. God and order. Now we get it twisted up. We think things are what they're not supposed to be. We react emotion, action, and then we think about it. We use our minds. That leads to sin when we react in emotions. And then we act out, and then we think about it afterwards. What we're supposed to do to have the mind of Christ was to renew our minds, think about what we're going to do. That reflects our actions about what we do. And then that also contains our emotions. Paul he kept his head when it was crazy. He didn't step in to the crazy. He stepped back and found peace before he spoke. And when he spoke, what did he say? Hey, may I say something to you? It wasn't a rebellious speaking. It was just, hey, can I have a minute of your time, my friend? So we got to think about that. Don't get roped into the crazy. When it gets crazy, step back and ask God to show you where His glory is in what's going on. Use that as your guiding post, your guiding light. Don't let emotions overrun you, as we so often do. And it's so easy when we look around and we don't see any peace going on in the world. We see chaos and craziness, and things are out of order. People are being allowed to do things that they should not be allowed to do. And there's no punishment for it. And the people who stand up and say, that's wrong, they get punished. But that's okay, because it's just what Jesus said would happen. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's real and what's true. All right, God bless you guys. Thank you for this day, and we thank you for this rain. Lord, be with Crystal tomorrow as she has this operation. Let her recovery be speedily. Just wrap your arms around the entire family, Lord, to provide everything that's needed for them. We just ask that the doctors would have their hands guided by you and their thoughts guided by you. And be a testimony of the miracles that you can do. We ask those things in Jesus' name. Father, the people who have been out and been sick, Lord, we just ask that you would be with them and heal them. And Father, touch my mother and my father as they are ill, and just let them know that you love them. Just let all the people in our lives have a special touch from you today, Lord. And know that you love them, and you are the Father, the good Father that has always loved them. We ask these things in Jesus Christ's name. And the church said, Amen.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you were blessed. If you have any questions, please give us a call, 682-327-7082. We are at 7955 Reed Road in Azle, Texas. Y'all have a good day now, you hear?